Pokémon Mystery Dungeon! Oh, my molecules. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is a series of games that I don't love. It's not because my molecules were touched. Yeah, okay, I'm just gonna drop that nugget of truth right here at the beginning, because when I first was coming up with this plan for the whole regional retrospective, or whatever the heck I was talking about, I was just gonna cover the quote-unquote canon titles. Essentially, all the games that are directly connected to the main Pokemon series, or at least what Bulbapedia says are connected directly to the main series, so that I could specifically skip the entirety of Mystery Dungeon. And also, Hey You, Pikachu, and Channel, which I won't lie, they kind of interest me, but I don't really see myself bringing anything interesting to the table regarding those games. Those two really read to me like books that you can absolutely judge by their cover. Then again, who knows, maybe I'll get around to them one day. This regional retro thing has kind of got a bit off the rails.
I can't take it anymore.
But back to Mystery Dungeon, why don't you love it, Chubby? How did your child self go through all, or at least played most of these games enough to somehow miss the point that everyone else seemed to cherish so dearly? What is it about Mystery Dungeon that you don't care for? And what finally made you decide to try to... Am I gonna have a stand-in for this? Should I get Xander to voice this? Nah, he won't fucking do it. What is it about Mystery Dungeon that you just don't care for? And why now? Why now of all times, Chubby, have you finally decided to try it? Chubby said calmly. Well, that's actually a bit of an interesting question, because you see, last January, and by that I mean the one in 2023, I started streaming, which led me to gain this little silly rat persona. And one of my first viewers at the time recommended I played Mystery Dungeon. And of course, I couldn't just play the normal way, so I spent that next weekend creating a rat-themed ROM hack that allowed me to play as my little rat self and his little buddy, which you yourself can play if you check out the mega link down below. And through the process of said creation, I learned a lot more about the community for Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. I had always known just how passionate people were for it, but now it truly dawned on me just how popular it truly was. And on top of that, I had a lot of fun for myself with my own little Reign of the Rats series, which is actually how I completed Explorers of Sky for the first time, with my own little twist. All of this really made me feel like I should really give this series a second chance. And when I heard my viewers say that they wish somebody would make a bigger retrospective for these games, you know, kind of like what I was already doing, I mean, it just became clear as day to me what I should do. But that doesn't explain why I don't care for the series very much. And that's actually because we need to explain what Mystery Dungeon really is before I can answer that effectively. So let's get into the meat of the video with Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team. So, Mystery Dungeon is actually more than just a side series for Pokemon. Its history actually goes back to one of Pokemon's biggest inspirations, Dragon Quest. The team at Chunsoft took some time off of working on Dragon Quest and wanted to make something new with that series. And inspired by the original roguelike, literally called Rogue, it led the team to develop Tornico's... is that how you say it? Tornico? I don't know. Tornico's Great Adventure Mystery Dungeon, starting the side series that even continues to this day with multiple series spanning successors, including Pokemon, which was a collaboration that Chunsoft were desperate to get into at the time due to some poor performance for some of their games, and this collaboration actually helped them avoid bankruptcy, which is really crazy to think about now. Released in November 2005 in Japan and 2006 everywhere else, the original Pokemon Mystery Dungeon came in two distinct versions. One, Red Rescue Team for the Game Boy Advance, and then the other, Blue Rescue Team for the Nintendo DS. This way, the game could be played on both the newest Nintendo handheld and the one children were more likely to own at the time, with even the box arts reflecting the DS's gimmick of plugging the GBA cartridges in the bottom and the DS games in the top. Now, these two effectively are kind of the same game, but for different consoles. There's not really that much in terms of differences between them, except for like how the blue version actually features the dual screens, which means like you can have one screen show the gameplay and the other can like hold a map or something. And then of course it has much better audio effects due to the DS's superior sound chip. But there are also version exclusive Pokemon between the games, but you know, other than all that stuff, they're effectively the exact same title. And the two came out to, let's say, medium success? I hesitate, mid. Critics found the game to be unique, but weren't really in love with the whole concept. A lot of this coming from the general disinterest in the Mystery Dungeon style of gameplay outside of its superfans, and the fact that some consider the game to be lacking in terms of multiplayer considering the emphasis on friendship. Or as GameSpot put it, no matter how much you claim to love Pokemon, you should probably skip Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Whew, okay, starting off strong. But of course, since this was Pokemon, the children ate it up like hotcakes, and it was even nominated for the Children's Game of the Year, and sold a combined 3 million worldwide, helping to bring the concept of Mystery Dungeon to a wider audience, and even earning some manga and animated adaptations. Then 15 years later, the game got a remake in Rescue Team DX, featuring everything from the original games as well as adding some mechanics from a few of the later titles, which is where the focus of this video will remain. I know, I usually do a very in-depth overview of each version of a game, like how I do for the other Pokemon stuff in this retrospective, but for this instance, I find it rather unnecessary. Not really enough to compare and contrast, like say Emerald to Alpha Sapphire. These games are pretty much the exact same, aside from like the modern improvements and additions added to the remake. There's not really all that much to really comment on other than, well, what I already had in the paragraph above. So how about we not waste any more time and just get into the Rescue Team games, and begin a brand new perspective on the Pokemon journey. Starting off gameplay-wise, you play as not a human trainer, but as a Pokemon that was once a human. But that's more of a story thing, so we'll get there later. The Pokemon actually being chosen from a list of 21, which is for the most part made up of the starters and Pikachu, but a few more stragglers show up from time to time to add some more diversity in your options. The game begins by giving you a sort of personality quiz, testing who you are as a person. Of course, this being a system that just randomly selects questions from a list and attributes values depending on your answer to said questions, I'm not really sure if this is really, an adequate test for your personality. So every time you take the test, you'll probably get different results, even if you're being honest. Not counting how some Pokemon are actually locked behind gender options, which is unfortunate. But to be real, I think this is a fascinating concept for you picking your player character. And I can see why this became such a popular aspect of the series, especially with the goofier ones like the alien invasion questions. I really like those a lot. Though more recent titles do allow you to just choose your Pokemon, which I think is much better for replays. Didn't stop some of those arbitrary questions from hitting a little too close to home. You tend to be the hasty type, don't you? Oh, well, I do tend to rush into things or be impatient, but it stems from your time in school. You really were quiet and kind of awkward as a child. Well, I definitely what you would call a gifted kid. Academics came easy to you and it gave you a bit of an ego, which in your little mind compensated for your lack of social skills. Okay, I did not expect this to hit so close to home. Eventually, however, it was revealed that your intelligence actually came from you just paying a bit more attention than your peers. And then when things got tough, you, without any skills developed from actually studying, began to spiral as you're now not as smart as you were supposed to be. I mean, sure, I guess, but I don't know how. And since you were so quiet, you had no one to confide in and you began to spiral faster. Now you're quiet, alone, and when met with any sort of obstacle, your first instinct is to say it's not for you and throw it away. And yes, that does include your ability to build any meaningful connections. But it was fine, you told yourself. They didn't like you anyway, right? Yes, okay, thank you, I get the picture. Now can you please just tell me which rat I am from the stupid list? You're also probably undiagnosed with something. Which makes Psyduck the perfect monster for you! Oh, fuck off! For this playthrough, we had 3 teams. Team Fist and Fang for Red Rescue Team, Team Niflheim for Blue Rescue Team, and Team Misfits for DX. This would have been a good Christmas episode. In the overworld, our characters can run around, interact with other Pokemon in the town, or take on different requests, or even participate in multiplayer missions to rescue our friends at the Pelipper post office. We play as a rescue team, that's our main MO. Save Pokemon, retrieve items, especially those from the mysterious dungeons. And the town helps us with that with places like the Kecleon shop to get different items. And see what should have been Shiny Kecleon, What's up with this? You can also save your money at the bank, train your bodies at the dojo, link your moves to create better combo attacks, and even meet Wigglytuff to buy more apartments for the different Pokemon you can recruit. Which first, buying places to store other partner Pokemon sucks, and I don't like it at all, but second, we can get there in like a minute. Now, the mystery dungeons themselves is where we spend most of the game, each one being these randomly generated floors with randomly generated items, with each one having its own Pokemon spawns and environmental themes as well as the actual amount of floors in them. Of course, each of these are on a grid and you'll have to move your Pokemon team to explore these dungeons square by square, and having to deal with the enemy Pokemon and their potential environmental hazards. But the dungeons themselves aren't the only danger. You see, first and foremost, Mystery Dungeon is a resource manager. The items you bring with you are far more important than anything else. No matter how strong you are, you'll eventually take damage, and you'll eventually get status affected, or you'll eventually get hungry, you'll eventually run out of moves, or you'll eventually die. And if you don't have the right items to deal with that problem, then it sucks to be you. If you come prepared, however, then you're damn near. Even in boss fights that you're underleveled for, a good damaging item, status affecting item, or even a mega seed to increase your overall power, you'll just sweep the floor with them. And sometimes defeating enemy Pokemon will impress upon them your skill and they'll want to team up with you. And in the remake, they'll follow you around, allowing you to ignore the 4-team limit and bring along a small army, which is so cool. Out of all the Mystery Dungeon games I've played, the remake is probably my favorite gameplay-wise. But that's because it allows me to sidestep a lot of the bullshit in Mystery Dungeon. Okay, you want to know the thing I don't like about Mystery Dungeon? I hate the gameplay, to be honest. I like the idea behind it. Sure, you know, going through these random dungeons, completing missions with your Pokepals, which, by the way, no better feeling than knocking out like 8 missions in one dungeon run. The dopamine from that is just insane. We'll get there. It's all great till I actually have to play the damn game. I don't care for mechanics like hunger, the way you can recruit Pokemon, but not actually because I don't own the specific apartment for them. Fuck off, Wigglytuff, go back to your day job, Utah! I actually hate the grid, to be honest. Moving in town is like way better. And the turn-based system for battles can sometimes take 10 years just for me to get comboed once and die. I feel like I'm wasting items constantly. Hunger is just a little fuck you that is the gameplay equivalent of getting a doorknob stuck on your gene loop while you're already having a bad day. The dungeons get so long and I hate it. Anything over 20 floors is just too much. Because when you die, not if, when you die, you gotta do that whole ass thing over again with less items. Ew. I think there's a big reason that when people talk and go on about Mystery Dungeon, they never talk about the gameplay. It's always the characters, the setting, the music, the cute little scarves. And that's cause the gameplay is either boring or infuriating. And I've played enough of these games to tell you that it really doesn't get any better. The later games just make it more tolerable. And that's especially true with this game, because unlike the others, you can actually use most of your status items on the bosses. You also get more items and money than you'll ever need. And if that's not enough, you get to have the remade dojo. Now, this is something I really want to speak on, because in the remake, it's kind of broken. At first, I saw that it was like limited use with these little tickets that you need to actually go in and train, and I was like, well, that sucks. Till I used a ticket and I grew like 5 levels, because holy shit, that is a big deal in a game where the final boss is level 30. Wow, love that feature. Mystery Dungeon DX is my favorite of these games, gameplay-wise, because I barely have to play it. If I was put in charge of a Mystery Dungeon game, I would probably keep things like the item management, randomized dungeons, and even the hunger idea, at least in some respect. But everything else gameplay-wise is getting gutted. I'd absolutely make this game play more like Hades or Diablo, which ironically I've not played either. What's a roguelike I've played? Patch Quest? Minecraft Dungeon? I don't know. Maybe not with those games like specific mechanics, but like an action game where I don't have to worry about my partners just taking hits for standing like statues during a fight. Though, This remake also adds secondary abilities, which also did help a lot more than I thought they would. Seriously, thank you, whatever that weird squeeze me one was. I'm not gonna say it out loud. Mystery Dungeon as a genre is just one that I don't care for, and granted, that may be because I've only played the Pokemon stuff. Apparently the other series are pretty decent from what I've heard, though to be honest, I'm just not interested. What I am interested in though is the other 90% of the aspects of these games, which granted is where they get their popularity. The graphics of Mystery Dungeon is intensely charming. In the original games, it was this bright and colorful world, full of life and fun sprite art, so expressive with those wonderful portraits. Then in the newer remake, we have these honestly very stilted models with very limited animation, though it can kind of at least be entertaining at times. And it has this BDSP problem of zooming in on things that would have been better seen from a distance. At least the Ekans looks better. But the color palette and the shading is gorgeous. It looks like a storybook. I really wish the main series dabbled with more visually interesting styles like this once in a while. Pokemon doesn't have to look so This is a series with an iconic roster of amazing creatures that fit perfectly with a more interesting visual style, especially if it feels like toys or a storybook. Every Mystery Dungeon after this needs to have this style. If they make any more, it's kind of up in the air right now. Musically, oh my god, where do I begin? Mystery Dungeon's music is so ethereal, so friendly, so intense. These soundtracks are some of the best in the franchise. And that's saying something when this series is known for banger after banger. I love the soundtracks for these games, easily some of the best music I've heard in general. This shit is the best lo-fi mix you can find, and I'm always listening to all the new remixes I see on Spotify or YouTube. And there's very few games I can say that about. But with all that being said, here's the spoiler tag. Listen, if there is anything people will tell you to experience with the Mystery Dungeon series, it's the plot and the characters. These are the best written stories in the series. I won't even attempt to create a straw man against it. I literally can't think of anyone who would disagree. And if you ain't played these games, then skip to here. If you don't care, well, it's your loss. And if you played these, then get ready for a trip down memory lane as we go into the story of Rescue Team DX. Starting things off with an ethereal quiz that gets a little too personal for my liking. We, a human from the world of man, is transported to the world of Pokemon, now in the body of said Pokemon. Without our memories, we are stranded in this unfamiliar world, but luckily a helpful Pokemon comes to our aid. As we get acquainted and learn that we're pretty much the only people around here who don't use our species title as a name, which has never bothered me in Mystery Dungeon to be fair, but it must be odd when you're trying to make new characters for a game out of previously used Pokemon. I mean, this could be like a driver for more creative choices for which mons you use out of literal thousands, but still, I do think it's kind of funny, especially how some characters kind of appear multiple times, or how multiple species are used, but they're not the same character. I don't know, we can get into that later. Anywho, as we're speaking, a Butterfree comes by worried about the state of their child after they fell into a fissure that suddenly appeared. Our heroes, Plush the Skitty and Squeaky the Psyduck, decide to help her out and brave the nearby Mystery Dungeon to retrieve her child, who is obviously a Caterpie. Caterpie quickly becomes our biggest fans, and this successful rescue actually convinces Squeaky that we may have what it takes to become a full-fledged rescue team, and help save all the people with all these weird and wild natural disasters going on. Huh, now why does that feel familiar? Okay, but for real, last night, tornadoes touched down around my house. I live in the mountains, that shouldn't be possible! Plush here decides that they might as well, since there's literally nothing else to do in this situation, and our heroes form Team Misfits. The toys, not the band. But I could see them jamming to it, to be honest, which, actually now that I think about it, I've never really listened to any of their songs. Let's see, what's the fan favorite? Hybrid Moments, huh? Yeah, I was expecting metal, but honestly, I'm not disappointed. This is pretty good. Anyways, Squeaky gets us set up in an older house they just happen to have, though Squeaky himself actually lives somewhere other than the house, which kind of makes me kind of sad. I don't know, I just kind of got lonely after all of our other games made the partners our roommates. And they were roommates. Well, with a place to lay our head and our new buddy to take on the world with, Team Misfits gets right to work rescuing lost Pokemon, battling bosses including legendary Pokemon, and dealing with an aggravating team of meanies called Team Meanies. Yeah, that's pretty creative. After a while, we get the chance to meet Team ACT or ACT, which is the best gold team ranked around. Though apparently there is a rank above gold known as Lucario in the original games. Look, I know Gen 4 was the thing to reference at the time, but is this and the statues like, I don't know, a little much? I mean, for God's sakes, they're not even legendaries, though I would forgive you for thinking Lucario was one. I did as well for a while. Though Lucario does lose his name as the ultimate rank in the remake, but he does actually get to appear in the games as the only non-evolution Pokemon introduced past Gen 4, which is actually really cool, and if any Pokemon deserved it, let's be real, it's him. He's just got the aura, man, I don't know. Anyways, Team ACT, featuring the star Alakazam and his partners Tyranitar and Charizard, are literally the best team of all time according to all the other characters in the game. And after our first meeting where Alakazam takes an interest in Plush, he'll eventually lead us to visit the Elder Xatu, who has the ability to see through time and predict many things, and can hopefully figure out our past and why we're here. Once there, the great Xatu proceeds to tell us that our transformation and the world's disasters are definitely linked, and if the world doesn't achieve balance soon, it will all be destroyed, which understandably makes Squish the Skitty really, skittish, I guess? Buttons. Squeaky isn't giving up though, and the two head back to town to see that everybody's talking about a certain legend about a Pokemon called Ninetales. You see, there once was a human that grabbed onto one of the 9 tails of Ninetales. When he did, a curse was laid upon him, but his loyal Gardevoir stepped in to take the curse on instead. The human abandoned his Gardevoir and was forced to become a Pokemon as punishment, and the people in town are now wondering if this has anything to do with the world's balance being, well, out of whack. Hearing all this, Squeaky starts to have his doubts about Plush, but he quickly gets over it. We've been a friend like no other to him, and there's no way we would have abandoned Gardevoir. And though Plush takes that as a nice gesture, the dreams they keep having involving Gardevoir trying to speak to them directly is starting to make things clear that we may have been involved in this balance thing after all. After returning to town, we find Gengar has been spying on us for some time, and even knew that we went to Xatu and that Plush was human. Using this information, he decides to do a little bit of McCarthyism and divide the town against us, even holding us responsible for the crimes of the world's current turmoil, that slimy bitch. Of course, now we're on the run as fugitives, and even with all the friends we made, we can't outrun this, with even Team ACT finding their way to us, but they stop before a brawl ensues, saying that they're giving us time to flee so we can clear our names, by finding Ninetales and asking her what really happened. As we're being chased literally across the map, holy shit, we end up taking a detour or two that has us face off against the other 2 legendary birds. But after a good battle or two to convince them we're cool, Absol comes in with the steel chair! And then he vouches for us, and as the literal disaster Pokemon, Absol knows a thing or two about what's happening to the world and wants to come with us to figure things out with Ninetales. From here, he basically becomes our third party member, but unfortunately he doesn't get to say much, which is kinda sad. I really liked his character a lot. Though, if he's gonna roll with us, he does need a name, and yeah, I don't know, maybe this doesn't really work with the whole misfit toy thing, but like, I don't know, it still works as a misfit in general. And as the team makes their way towards Luke, you need to head to Dagobah. Oh, shit, wrong snow planet. Plush, you need to head to Ninetales. Yeah, I know, that's where I'm going right now. Oh, okay then, smartass. Wait, come back! As the team makes it to the peak of the mountain, they see that there's no Ninetales to be found. and then Team Act has finally caught up with us. Sadly, a deal is a deal. You know, they let us go before, but if we got caught, then we'd have to brawl. And then this cool-ass anime fight scene happens, which is like, why haven't we been doing this the whole time? Only to be interrupted by the actual Ninetales, which, hey, thank goodness, because the best team in the world was about to get dog-walked by a stuffed kitten, a rubber ducky, and, angel duck? I don't know what the fuck he is. Ninetales lays it out for us. The legend about Gardevoir being betrayed by a human turned Pokemon was true. And Plush was not the human the legend mentioned. Woo! However, that info doesn't really explain what's going on with the natural disasters, and things are actually about to get a whole lot worse with the legendary Pokemon Groudon beginning to wake up, and his power activating could be a really bad thing right now. Team Act leads us back home to try and figure shit out with Groudon, but not before airing the fuck out of Gengar for his bullshit, getting the town back on our side. Act heads off to deal with Groudon, but after a while they don't return, leading to a panic in the town square as lots of Pokemon begin to step up to go look for them and stop Groudon. Though, oddly enough, the one guy here that can swim in magma doesn't speak up. I see you back there, motherfucker! Though ultimately it is Team Misfits that have to go. But before that, Gengar actually tries to start some shit, and the others kind of consider what he's saying because of how weak we look. Oh, we look weak, do we? Y'all didn't think we looked weak when you hunted our asses down a wink ago, but now, oh no, they're so young and what a bunch of assholes. Y'all deserve to burn. However, our reputation as a team precedes us, and we ultimately get the opportunity to head off after Act and Groudon, but not before Gardevoir comes in to give us some info about their lost trainer, and how they really weren't that bad a person except for the fact they left you to be cursed for all eternity. But on the bright side, we do get to check Wally off our list of suspects. Not that I had any doubts about him, of course. Gardevoir then tells us our role in this world is about to end, and after that, she says goodbye. Or au revoir, because, you know, she's a Gardevoir. Au revoir. Yeah, I'll see myself out. After trekking our way into the magma caves, we find Team Act defeated with a looming Groudon over them. Lucky for us, however, we got a small army and a Mega Steelix on our side, so the big red bitch can't do much to defeat our power. God, we put his jaw on the curb and stomped! Team Act then wakes up and is surprised by our strength, which, holy shit. Though Xatu quickly dashes that joy by radioing in to tell us wait, you could have radioed in the whole time? Oh, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't I be able to do that? Then why couldn't you have told everybody that we were framed earlier? Oh, where? My name's Plush, and I want somebody to solve all my problems. Where? Though, on that note, you actually do need to solve all of our problems. Xatu tells us the real reason that the world of ours is going nuts, and that is in response to a meteor about to smash into the planet, destroying it. We're told we need to make our way up to the stratosphere to meet with Rayquaza, the only Pokemon strong enough to destroy it with its Hyper Beam. Getting prepared to make the harsh journey up to the sky, Plush and Squeaky get one last good rest in. But Gengar comes in to try and ruin things one more time with his Dream Eater, revealing that he was also once human and he's not done trying to show our true nature as a lowlife like him. However, he is stopped by a light, Gardevoir, coming in to protect us and reveal to us that we're brought to this world specifically to unite the Pokemon against the threat of this meteor, even having our memories erased as a sort of test to see if we're worthy, which feels like a little bit much, but okay. Either way though, after our mission tomorrow, our role is complete and we'll need to be sent back to the world of man, and we'll have to say goodbye to Squeaky, our best friend. The next morning, we make our final preparations as we head off to meet Alakazam and Xatu, who have made a teleportation gem to send us to the Rayquaza's lair. Once there, we fight our way to the top, including fighting the legendary Rayquaza. And I swear, does every legendary have to attack on sight? Like, can't we just say hello anymore? After beating him back, we convince him to destroy the meteorite, which is damn near the planet now, oh god. Rayquaza tries to warn us that we might get caught up in the blast, but Squeaky hits him with the so? God, what a cold little duck. And here we were calling Rattata king. Nah, this guy deserves the crown. Rayquaza charges up and fires his beam, destroying the deadly rock. And afterwards, Plush seems to be trapped in this weird purgatory. Gengar comes by and starts to drag us to what he calls the Dark World, but at some point he decides that he took the wrong direction and just leaves us at some weird spot, which ends up being right in front of all of our friends. Oh, how convenient. Our heroes, having saved the day, now travel back to town to celebrate, but things turn somber as Plush, now having fulfilled their duty, is being transported back to their world. There's a tearful goodbye between the two partner Pokemon and things end. But there's actually a lot more to do in the post-game if you're interested, so bam, Plush is back, but whatever, I guess. Honestly, if we're just being real, I wasn't really interested in the longer dungeons and more legend battles, so I didn't really play any of the post-game. I know, you need to leave, but that's just how it is. The story of Rescue Team is wonderful. Yeah, actually, I really don't have a lot wrong to say about it. We had a fairly standard but interesting story with a lot of fun and different characters with fun personalities. I really liked the Elder Team, ACT or ACT. You had Alakazam always acting like he's all coy and he's trying to pretend he doesn't have an inkling to everything going on, even though he's the 4,000 IQ Pokemon, so of course he kind of does. And then you got Charizard, who's the guy who goes completely on instinct, and he actually perfectly matches Alakazam in the way they come to the same conclusion, but in completely different ways, which I thought was pretty funny. Tyranitar doesn't really do shit, but he looks cool, and I like him, so I guess that's enough. Gengar actually was a pretty fun antagonist. In the post-game, it's revealed that, as you could have guessed, he was Gardevoir's trainer. And there's even a quest line to try and help her gain her physical form back, which is pretty sweet. With him trying to hurt us at first, just him being a big jerk. But then when he finds out we're human, it kind of slowly morphs into his guilty conscience. If he was a bad human, that means you had to have been one as well. And he doesn't take it very well when it's clear that you aren't like him at all. It shakes him to his core and he eventually grows from it. Though, let's be real, why the hell did the town believe the guys called Team Meanies? I mean, come on, that's pretty ridiculous, right? Wrong? Oh god. But the partner Pokemon, now that is the real showstopper. This Psyduck was ride or die the whole game, constantly doing everything in their power to support us while following their own dreams of helping Pokemon in crisis. Even when threatened by legendary Pokemon, he stood his ground and he fought on. I like him a lot. I got nothing bad to say about this kid at all. Though maybe that does bring me to something I kinda wanna speak on. It's very odd that we never evolved during the course of the story for these games. I kinda feel like that is such a good metaphor for our growth as characters, to literally have us evolve into stronger people. And it's kinda disappointing that these games never make use of such an interesting mechanic for a metaphor like that. And it's also weird that the characters in the story, some of them being evolved Pokemon, have to have it explained to them what evolution even is? Huh? The mystery of our MC's role in the game was kind of fun. Obviously, as an adult playing this, I could tell early on that we weren't the one who portrayed Gardevoir, but I know a kid would be stressing hard as shit about this kind of thing, especially with all the cut-off messages from them, which could have easily been read as threatening to a child, which I found to be a fun use of this idea. Part of me wishes the game did end with us being transported away, and Psyduck, now having the experience of a full-time rescuer, is able to tackle their dreams without any help. But, I understand, it's a kid's game with plenty of extra things to do in the post-game, you gotta do that kind of stuff. Though I did still feel really emotional during the exit and return scenes, which, that's gotta say something. My only gripe about the plot actually comes with the BS with Mankey and the Why Not in the midsection, which got so annoying, but whatever, it's pretty forgettable. Except for the fact that they pimped my crib. It would have been so sad if we left and that skitty-shaped building just stayed there forever. Ouch, poor Psyduck. And I didn't actually have this in the script, but I do want to talk about Absol a little bit. Seriously, what a cool character that just didn't get anything after his first cutscene. I really liked him. I know why he didn't get anything, just in case you didn't want to use him and you had your own third-party member that you recruited earlier. But still, I don't know, he could have been this game's Grovyle, which is saying a lot if you know this series. But then again, that's Pokémon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team. A game with plenty of heart, wonderful style, ethereal music, and a great story to go along with it. But the gameplay's pretty mid. Yeah, that really is the sole factor that's kept me away from this series. For as much as a masterpiece it is in a lot of ways, the actual game part of this video game series is just so... Maybe that'll change for me as we cover the rest of this side series, but for now, don't get your hopes up, kids, let's be real. Though, what you should be doing is going back and giving this classic game another look at, as it's more than deserved the praise it's gotten over all these many years. Alright, what am I even doing with the tier list thing anymore? I mean, it feels to me that it's kind of lost its original purpose in this whole thing, but sure, whatever, let's put Mystery Dungeon, here, I guess. If Snakewood can be there, fucking anything could be there, you know? But as for the next stop on our little Pokemon retrospective, I think it's about time we bite the bullet. We've been hanging out in Generation 3 for a long time, but I think it's time to move on. Though there is a certain side series I definitely want to get to, but that one fits way more after the Generation 4 video. So next time on this Pokemon retrospective, we're going to be heading to the region that started it all. Not just for me, but for the series, lore-wise, kind of. I don't know, there's a lot of religious mumbo-jumbo. Actually, that fits well with me now that I'm thinking about it. Oh well. See you all in Sinnoh, everybody. And to whoever's doing that stupid portal, you better not pull that shit again. I'm not comfortable with it. It made my molecules feel... I feel violated.